Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is a game that was met with very anxious anticipation back in 2019, because it promised a new look at a Jedi story post-Order 66. However, it was a bit nerve-wracking because, well,
I like money!
But luckily, another company behind it, Respawn, was pretty much the only one that touched it, at least as far as I'm aware, and it actually turned out great. I wanted to do this video for a while, but well, procrastination and putting off making a script, which, fun fact, this will actually be the first video with a script on my channel, so I naturally spent time trying to make it like how I talk, so that is part of why this video took so long to make, and other reasons that we won't get into. But anyways, to understand everything I have to say about the game, you have to know the story, which obviously, spoiler warning. So without further ado, let's begin a trend I hope to set with these, which I shall lovingly dub Hyperspeed Recaps. Our story begins on a planet called Brocker, where we are introduced to Cal, a scrapper listening to a band on his headphones whose singer clearly needs a cough drop. We then are introduced to his friend Prof, fellow scrapper, where they get a job that'll pay big. However, along the way they experience some complications in the form of a cable snapping, and the two of them sliding down a ship. Cal grabs a cable at the end, Prof is slipping, Prof falls, Cal slows him with the Force, and they get out of there. Prof was like, "Yo bro, that was the Force, right?" And Cal was like, "Just forgot you saw anything." They then are stopped on a train and two Inquisitors are outside, inquire about Jedi, Prof monologues, gets stabbed, Cal pulls a saber, gets thrown off a cliff, lands on another train, takes some stormtroopers out, meets a Lady and Goro Jr., aka Seer and Grease. They go to Bogano and Cal meets BD-1, as well as learning about Eno Cordova, who is on a journey to learn more about the Zepho, and that there's a holocron with all known Force-sensitive children, and Cal's like, well, that's pretty important. They now need to go to Zepho. On Zepho, Cal finds a tomb as well as some robo-thingies who don't like company, and learns that he now needs to go to Kashyyyk. On Kashyyyk, he meets Saw Gerrera, who is trying to free the Wookiees, and Cal helps Saw free the Wookiees, and can't find Tarful, so he returns to Zepho only to be found by the second sister, who turns out to be Trilla, Seer's former apprentice, who says that Seer gave her up and went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Trilla almost kills Cal, but BD says, "We still have a game to play, woman! Wait your turn!" and slams the laser door in her face. Cal then explores the tomb once more whilst being taunted by Trilla until he eventually learns of the astrium that he needs to unlock the vault. Cal is about to leave Zepho, but not before we're ambushed by some rowdy hooligans and captured. He wakes up in a mysterious place, finds BD, and has to fight in a gladiator ring until Grease and Seer eventually find him and they escape. Grease feels bad and consoles Cal, and as a result, Grease's heart grows 3 times that day. Cal then goes back to Kashyyyk, fights a bunch of local fauna, finds Tarful, takes out the Ninth Sister, and learns the astrium is on Dathomir. They go to Dathomir, find Mare, and the Ninth Sister is clearly introverted, get kicked out after Cal destroys his lightsaber. Seer tells Cal everything, they go to Ilum to fix the lightsaber, go back to Dathomir, fight Malicos, get the astrium. Marin says, "Yo, I want to join you, homie," and go to Bogano. Unlock the vault, but surprise, Trilla's there. Cal gets her lightsaber, has a bad trip. Trilla gets holocron, goes the most farthest move. Cal's knight finally defeats Trilla, and Darth Vader comes into play. Scary escape sequence. Seer uses the Force. They escape. Marin saves Cal. They hug, and Cal destroys the holocron, saying,
"Somewhere to now."
Needless to say, it's a lie. Please, I beg of you, tap that like button for my suffering. Anyway, first and foremost, you have to understand the importance of this game as a whole, not only for being a great story, but the time that it was released and the importance it had in needing to bring the fire to light a flame that may not have needed new life, but was slowly decaying with no real release of a major story-based game in quite a while. While there have been a few pretty good stories in Star Wars games, the big solo hitters since 2010's The Force Unleashed 2, following its 2008 release of its predecessor, The Force Unleashed. And yes, I'm not including the MMO because I'm referring to a single-player game that focuses on story and also were pretty big successes. Either way, with games like The Force Unleashed and Knights of the Old Republic, Fallen Order had some pretty big shoes to fill, and boy oh boy, did it fill them. Yes, there was some anxiety behind its release with EA being announced to be one of the contributors to the game, but luckily, Respawn took a majority of the production and turned this game into quite the masterpiece, at least in my opinion. Now, without further ado, let's finally dive into this game, starting with the characters, because a game is nothing without 3 core aspects: its story, its settings, and its characters. Let's get into it. Star Wars is nothing if not filled with a diverse set of characters of varying species and just so much variety in its world to where if you think of a type of creature or planet, I'm sure Star Wars has it, and Fallen Order definitely delivers in that regard. You have a Jedi apprentice, a Jedi, a four-armed pilot, an Inquisitor, Wookiees, Night Sisters, and don't even get me started on the variety of enemies from the Empire or even the Haxian Brood. There may not be 10,000 types of characters, but I feel like this game has the perfect amount to get both the story to work and give it a very nice amount of variety, as well as give you the right amount of time with those characters, depending on their importance, to let you know what they want and what they do. First and foremost, there's Cal, the apprentice that suffered the loss of his master during the Purge, which resulted in him becoming a scrapper hiding out and blending in on Baraka. He's very simple and to the point. He struggles with his past and feeling like he both failed himself and his master and blaming himself for the death of his master during the Purge. It is a very heavy weight on him, and throughout the story it shows in the most beautiful yet heartbreaking ways, and I love that. He has a few good ways of getting through it, the biggest ones I see being Seer and BD1. They are such good support systems and help Cal through the darkness to become the Jedi he was meant to become, or maybe not meant to become, but at least could become, which is epic nonetheless. The boy's been through some crap, so he deserves it. Following Cal, we have BD, and sadly, I don't have much to offer in terms of thoughts on BD, but I do love how BD and Cal kind of latch onto each other and are like absolute homies throughout the story. It's really just a nice dynamic to see and can really be good with breaking the tension in an otherwise really stressful environment. Next up, we have Seer, the former Jedi Master who cut herself off from the Force. We don't know much about her initially, and we only learn the full story about her halfway through the story, which honestly, I really like. We just go off of blind trust because we know that she was a Jedi, and she's not trying to kill us. But on Zepho, when Trilla reveals herself and part of Seer's past, we start having questions, which leads to tensions and even avoidance. It affects relationships for a while until crap goes down and we learn the full story and finally understand Seer's pain and regret. It's just beautiful, simply put. We then go to someone mentioned with Seer, and honestly my favorite catalyst of the story, Trilla. We're introduced to her right out of the gates, of course not knowing who she is, only knowing her as the second sister. Trilla is immediately imposing and powerful and is quite the force of nature right off the bat. She's constantly in Cal's head, mocking and testing him, and eventually it all ties together when we are on Zepho, and she finally removes her mask, revealing herself as Seer's former apprentice turned Inquisitor. She's both the main antagonist and, as stated, a huge catalyst that moves the main story forward. She both starts and ends the story in parallels of each other, starting in the dark, being a force of darkness, and ending having a moment of light only to be snuffed out by Vader. She is the ultimate tragic character in this story. Jaro Tapal is quite honestly one of the most amazing teacher characters in Star Wars I've seen in media for quite a while. I will always favor characters like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, but I don't know, there's just something about Jaro that is a very nice touch. While we only ever see him in flashbacks and 3 Force visions, it is very easy to see his impact and importance, and I love that. It's a very nice touch to an already amazing story, and he honestly ties Cal's story together in a really nice bow. Our final Jedi that I'll talk about is Eno Cordova. He, much like DePaul, is only ever seen or heard in his hologram messages, as well as his audio logs he leaves for us in each level. I don't have much to say about him, but I really like his views and how he is presented, never overshadowing Cal, Seer, and company, but also never underdone by other elements of the story. He is important, yet not crucial. Going away from Force-wielding characters, I want to talk about Grease. Grease, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated characters in the game, and his development throughout is very nice. He starts as just a pilot hired by Seer, who is doing his job, but slowly over the story, he warms up to Cal, and even becomes friends, as well as showing his weakness being his past in gambling with the Brood, which gets Cal captured and having to be rescued. By the end of the story, he sees everyone on the Mantis as family, which is very sweet and just downright beautiful. Going back to Force wielders, sort of, I want to talk about Marin. Marin is my favorite side character. Why is this? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure myself. I just think her story is very nice, and she has a wonderful progression. We meet her when we are, as she sees, trespassers. She is very pessimistic towards Jedi, blaming them for the murder of her kind, and is very resentful towards them for that reason. However, as we progress in Dathomir, she learns that what she has learned is very much not true, and warms up to Cal and the idea of Jedi, and eventually even helps in the battle between Cal and Malicos, and becomes a member of the Mantis crew, and even having a crucial role in getting into the fortress near the end of the story. She's very well written and just a beautiful character all around. Wait, I didn't mean it like that. Wait, what? Malicos was mentioned with Marin, and I won't get into excruciating detail about him, but I just want to note that I love his character because of one aspect. He is proof that without guidance, a Jedi can very easily become corrupted with the search for power, especially on Dathomir with the magic, with a K. While I know there are other great examples of this, namely Anakin, I think Malicos adds very nicely to this. Moving on from the characters, let's get into half of the meat of why I wanted to make this video in the first place, and the first part of that is the story. I know, duh, but there's a few things I'd like to unpack and get in depth with, or at least as in depth as I can manage. While there is one primary focus in the story, there are plenty of side stories intertwined to the journey, and they give their own tales and details of the worlds we encounter and continue this journey on. First of all, let's get to the main aspect of the story, which is the beginning of a scavenger hunt-esque mission began on Bogano when we find BD as well as Jedi Master Eno Cordova's first recording, stating that he is studying the Zepho, an ancient Force-sensitive civilization. He also mentions that there's a holocron with information about Force-sensitive children, and with that, as well as the time we're set in, a possibility of a new Jedi Order. That catapults us into the beginning of a very tenuous yet amazing journey, because while yes, that journey is the main focus, there are many great stories told in the midst of the main storyline of the game. While we are searching for the clues and eventually get to unlocking the vault on Bogano to get the holocron, we accomplish many things story-wise in the process. Cal slowly regains his connection to the Force, Seer faces her past, Grease deals with the consequences of his gambling addiction, and quite a few other interesting side tidbits of story of various characters like Marin and Saw Gerrera. We'll start with the easiest one to go off of, and that's Cal's personal journey with both re-strengthening his connection to the Force and regaining skills from before the Purge, as well as dealing with the unaddressed grief of losing his master and having to hide from that to survive, as well as just having to hide in general. It's really deep stuff because, as simple of a concept as it is, I think it was done really beautifully and at a wonderful pace. As Cal continues his journey to find Cordova's clues, he's faced with both physical and mental challenges that forces him to remember his master's training and, in turn, confronting his fears and coming to terms that his master's death was not his fault, even being emphasized later in the story when he has the flashback to Order 66, and then has a Force vision of his master, resulting in him unknowingly destroying his lightsaber in the process, and Seer reminding him he was only a child. It's deep stuff, and is handled gorgeously given the settings, and it's not sugarcoated. I especially highly enjoyed Dathomir, as scary as it was, because, in my opinion, that is where a lot of the meat of the story is held. Cal meets Marin, my favorite side character, a Night Sister, and the last of her kind, who despises Jedi because of what Malicos told her. Cal grows a lot there through both his final vision accepting his past and growing from it and coming to peace with himself. He's in pain, and we know it, but he finds the strength to get through and become the Jedi he was meant to be, and comes out a Jedi Knight. I also have to give some credit to Kashyyyk as well, because it's a very nice contrast to Dathomir. While there is still chaos, it exudes a sort of feeling of peace and beauty, as opposed to the gritty and dark feeling of Dathomir. Where Cal faced his biggest struggles on Dathomir, he finds the most peace on Ilum and Kashyyyk. While on Dathomir, Cal is in conflict with his past more than before, facing struggle after struggle, and even having to fight a giant beast and convince Marin she was manipulated and lied to. On the contrary, on Kashyyyk, Cal finds the most support out of all the places he's been and grows the most. One of the examples of this is him relearning his Jedi flip. While smaller in comparison to his other abilities, I like to think this is symbolism of him feeling lighter and at peace with himself, as personified by the action of the Jedi flip being a move that gets you higher in the air and reaches more areas. And that is basically what Cal feels. Adding to that, he finds the big bird of the land and even befriends it after helping it out, as opposed to the battle with the winged beast on Dathomir. He's even helped by Wookiees and rebels, while on Dathomir, everything and everyone was out to get him. It's just such an opposite dynamic, and I love it. It's like the light versus the dark, and I'm here for it. Moving back to Seer, she's an excellent catalyst for Cal, and I love their dynamic throughout. The best way to describe it is that they help each other both resolve their past as well as grow from it. Seer helps Cal with his struggles with his lost master as well as his shaky Force connection, being an excellent mentor and friend, and Cal helps Seer come to terms with Trilla and what she's become, as well as help her accept who she is and to stop running from her past. I also want to bring some attention to Trilla because she's another big factor in Cal's growth. While Seer is the primary victim of her hate, Cal grows a lot, both in terms of skill because of their encounters, but also growing in knowledge and wisdom. He's exposed to what he could have become, and it's like a reminder to him. He could have ended up like her, but he didn't, and he is strong because of that. Overall, I really love the story of this game, and there's so much I haven't covered, but if I focused on all the little details, this video would be way longer than it needs to be, so let's move on to the other half of the big part I love about this game. The world building in Fallen Order is one of my favorite things about the game. I know I was gushing about the story, but man, this world. It is just so beautiful and has so much variety. You have the marshy swamplands of Bogano, the forest-filled Kashyyyk, the harsh, unforgiving Dathomir, the icy caves of Ilum. There's just so much to unpack. So much detail is put into both the surroundings and even the local fauna you have to fight in each area on each planet. Everything is there for a reason and has a purpose that is made clear with its surroundings. Nothing is there without reason, and it's all tied together. But that's not what I want to talk about. No, I want to talk about how the world paces itself and how the design makes coming back to the planets as you progress feel different each time you come back with new abilities. Each planet has its own special terrain, and while they all utilize each skill you attain along your journey, they each use it in a unique way. They each have their own special areas that you can't access until later on, and while sometimes that may seem frustrating, it gives you enough to where you are satisfied, yet are also yearning for more. It gives just as much as it promises, and it's so awesome. In my opinion, this is best shown on Kashyyyk. In particular, the first section you face when on your journey to the top of the tree. It's a small river surrounded by the roots of the tree and various obstacles. However, in that area you are given a rebreather, which opens the waters to be traversed underneath, and you are now introduced to the underwater traversal. Another example is the climbing claws. On Dathomir, after you fight the winged beast a little bit, you gain access to the climbing claws, which allow you to traverse walls you weren't able to climb before and reach areas you weren't able to prior. Or when you learn the force pull or push, and can pull and push obstacles down to access new areas. It's just such a cool thing, and I love how it is paced and how you can access certain things at that moment and other areas later in the story. It makes each visit to the same planet unique and adds to the beauty of each individual place, making everything come together until you eventually are able to traverse the whole area and appreciate all the small details. It's really just a beautiful sight. I know that I haven't gone quite as deep with this subject, but honestly, as much as I like it, its beauty is in its simple yet complex structure. Each world has a purpose and various paths you can take, sometimes feeling like a maze depending on where you are and what kind of situation you're facing. It builds beautifully into the story and makes the pacing so amazing, because it almost builds its own speed with its structure, and that is very nice. Overall, I just love Fallen Order. It is an amazing story with very well built upon characters, along with various amazing worlds to traverse with their own stories to tell. Everything has a place and purpose, and there isn't, in my opinion, a pixel wasted in this game. Everything complements each other very nicely, from the characters to the enemies to the surroundings. Everything plays off of each other to tell a very beautiful story, and a story that is one of my personal favorites. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order makes this space lion a very happy man, and I hope I conveyed that to you. Well, there you have it. That's the video I've been working on for so freaking long now. Now, Granted, mind you, I am not going to be doing these types of videos all the time because this took me way too long to make, particularly the hyperspeed recap part that took me quite literally hours for a 3-minute segment, or less than 3-minute segment. And I'm not even going to get into that, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm down to make more videos like this, but definitely not anytime soon. But just know that content is not going to be changing to this. This is just a little kind of side thing that I wanted to try out, and if you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments, and just yeah, give me your thoughts. I'm totally down to do this again in the far future, not near future, because this took way too much time. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will hopefully be getting a whole lot back into content creation. I'm not going to make any guarantees, because I also have a video that I want to talk about, stuff like that. But this is getting way too drawn out, so I'm just going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. This took, again, way too long to make, so I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like, shared it around, left a comment, etc., etc. And if you're not subscribed and you somehow found this, hey, maybe join the club. You never know. You might like it here. But that being said, I will hopefully see you, lovely ladies and gents, in the next video. And remember, God bless, and of course, stay awesome.